So I'm going to go ahead and get started. So this is the fifth and final session of the 5-session series on injury prevention for runners. So today I'm going to be going through an exercise with you that's my favorite and in my opinion the best single recovery and warm-up exercise for running or any other alternating reciprocating activity like hiking, walking, even cross-country skiing or anything like that. So if you want to do that exercise with me today, you're going to need a resistance band, um, a small ball or a rolled towel about 4 to 6 inches size. So this is the one I'm using. So something or a towel that you roll up to about this width. And also you're gonna need a bandana, or if you have another way that you like to attach your resistance bands in the door, you can use that. But if you just have a bandana or a napkin, I'm gonna show you how to just use that to attach your resistance band to the door. And last thing you need is a 7 to 10 inch book or block. And you don't need any of these things if you still want to practice with me and all you have is a rolled towel or ball. That's enough to get a good sense of the exercise. The resistance band really adds a lot, but if you don't have that today, you can still play along with me and get the idea. So if you have at least a ball, go ahead and grab that and then meet me back here. So this exercise is very powerful, the single exercise that I'm going to talk to you about, and it's called standing wall supported resisted reach. So that's kind of a mouthful, but basically it's getting you up on your feet, so that's standing, and that teaches your body how to manage gravity, how to be on your feet and still maintain neutral position in your rib cage and your pelvis. So in session 1, 2, 3, and 4, I emphasize the importance of being able to maintain neutral or flexion through your rib cage. And what that means is that your rib cage is basically stacked on your pelvis. So I'm going to demonstrate for you here. So if you look at me from the side, if my ribs push up in the front and my back is arched, now my pelvis is going forward and my rib cage is going up. So I'm no longer stacked. My back is compressed and I can't breathe air here. I can only breathe air up in the front. But if I can exhale and bring my ribs down so that now my rib cage and pelvis are stacked, then I can rotate, which is necessary for running. It's necessary to be able to rotate through our thorax, our rib cage to run. I can breathe into my back. And that's where, remember, most of your lung is and the highest ratio of blood vessels to lung field is. So you definitely want to be breathing back there no matter what activity you're doing. And as a runner, as the more we go into running, which is an extended activity, you need to extend or come out of your neutral position a little bit to run. You kind of get in this pattern of extension where you can't breathe well into your back and you can't rotate well. So it's really important for runners to retrain their bodies into flexion as a warm-up before you run. You start yourself off in a neutral position, and then as you run, you'll be pulled out of that position. And then when you come back, you reestablish that until it becomes easier and easier for you to access that even while you're running. So that's why it's my favorite exercise, because promoting that flexion. You're on your feet, so it's more similar to running. Some of the other exercises we did, you were on your back or on your side, which is definitely training muscles in a very specific and special way, but getting you up on your feet, I think, really helps. The reach, when I reach my arms, it creates this motion of my spine moving back. But I have to reach my arms in a special way. If I just reach, do you see how my back arched again? So really, what I want to do is reach my arms forward, but really my arms didn't move. If you look at my fingertips, my hands stay in the same place, but I'm moving my spine back. So that's a special kind of reach that this exercise teaches you. It teaches you to use your shoulder blades to help expand your rib cage in a desirable way. And it's a tricky motion. Most of us don't think of that when we think reach. When we think reach, we think disconnect, right? We lose that rib cage to pelvis connection. When we reach, we lose it. So this exercise is teaching you how to reach and establish that, so that when you run and you're swinging those arms, you're not constantly pulling yourself out of a good position. Let's see if there's anything I wanted to say about that. So I think that's all I want to say about it, but I think we should just try it. So let me show you first how I use my bandana to hook the resistance band in the door. Another thing you'll need is the back of a door. So take your laptop over to somewhere where you can have that. If you're not using a resistance band, then you just need some empty wall space. So here's my little resistance band, and I have two little loops at the end, which is nice to have, but you don't have to have that. And then I have this bandana, and you can use a napkin or even maybe like a small towel. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to fold it over so it's like a triangle, and then I'm just going to wrap it around a few times just to make it into a little loop. And then I tie a knot, and you can put your resistance loop through there, and then I'm just going to hook this over the top of the door. So let's go for a field trip over to the door. So I'm going to tilt this up just so you can see how I do this. So I'm going to take this knotted end, I'm going to open the door, and I'm just going to fling it over the top, shut it, and now I have my resistance in the door. Pretty neat trick. So the next thing I'm going to need is my block or book. So I'm going to use this old textbook. It's about, 7 inches or so. And I'm just going to put it right up against the door. And that's going to be right behind where my heels are. And then I'm going to grab my ball. So now I'm all set up to go, and we're going to try the exercise together. So people get confused and think that the book behind my heels is just a placeholder and that they don't need it. Some people don't need it, but most of the time if you have it, I say use it, because it's not just a placeholder. What it's doing is it's giving you a sense of your heels. Even though it's just touching the back of your heels give you the ground. And when you have the ground, you can sense your heels on the ground, and you can push the floor away as a runner, which recruits the proper musculature, your hamstrings and glutes, to propel you forward. If you cannot sense the floor, aka you can't feel your heels on the ground, or you think you can, but your body isn't getting that information well, you're going to pull yourself forward with your hip flexors and your neck, and you're going to wonder why you have a headache and your hips hurt and your back hurts when you run. So I like the book because it's just giving your body more information. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to lean against the door, and I'm going to put the ball between my knees, and I'm just going to gently squeeze it. I'm going to sense the weight through my heels. And I'm going to take one end of the band, the resistance band, in each hand. If you have the loops, do use them. I just loop them around my hand like so. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to slide down just a bit So it's not ski conditioning. I'm not squatting all the way down here. I'm just squatting enough that I can round my pelvis. So I'm tilting my tailbone off, and I'm also reaching with my arms to bring my upper back off, but I'm working hard here to keep my lower back on the wall. So again, that's squat down, tailbone off, so that's this motion, it's like a tuck, upper back off, so about just below my bra line is on the wall, all the way to my lower back, and then my tailbone is off the wall. So my upper back and tailbone are off the wall, heels on the ground. And I'm reaching my arms, but as I reach my arms, my sternum, my breastbone goes back. Remember that action of reaching forward as your rib cage goes back? That's what I'm doing here. And you'll really want to go into your toes here, so keep the weight through your heels. This reaching with the resistance of the band really helps me feel that. What I'm going to do is I'm going to stay here. I'm going to breathe in through my nose, but keep the reach, and then I'm going to exhale, reach my arms a little bit further forward as my rib cage goes back. Then I'm going to pause there and keep the reach as I breathe in through my nose. If you're doing this correctly, you should feel your abs working, and when you breathe in, you should feel a stretch in your upper back. I'm going to also show you this from the side so you can see better what my back is doing. So just like before, I'm going to stand here and put the ball between my knees, find weight through my heels. The backs of my heels are on the book. And I reach my arms about parallel with my thighs. So I'm not reaching up here. I'm just reaching them in the same angle as my thighs. So I'm going to slide down, and then I'm going to, do you see how my tailbone came off, but my lower back stayed on the wall? And I'm going to reach with my arms so that bra line and above is off, tailbone is off, low back is on, and boy, do I feel my abs, my outer abs working. And then from here, I just work that breath, keeping weight through the heels. Inhale through your nose. As you exhale, reach your arms forward and down as your spine goes back. So I'm not doing this, right? What I'm doing is I'm reaching arms forward, but really rounding my upper back, really working to keep that tailbone moving off, weight through my heels. Reach, pause, keep the reach as you breathe in. And then to come up, keep weight through your heels, keep a little squeeze on the ball, release the bands, and come out. So that exercise, it does have a lot of moving parts, but it's very powerful and very effective. So if you only have time to do one thing before and after your workouts, that's my go-to and my favorite, and I highly recommend it. So if you have time to practice it and work on it and get all the nuances down, it's very effective. So if you are going to try it, make sure you download the exercises and go through all the instructions. Make sure you're getting all the pointers, or you can watch this video again too. So there's really only one other thing I wanted to talk about today. And so we might end a little earlier today, we'll see. So the other thing that I wanted to talk about is when you are living in your day-to-day life, right? You're not running, you're not doing your exercise activities. you're just standing or sitting around, those are times when you can make a really big change. The way you stand and sit throughout your day really matters because you're putting in a lot of time there. So that's going to inform your body a lot. And that's usually when we're the least conscious, is when we're just going about our day-to-day stuff and not really paying attention. So what we want to train our bodies to do is shift and stand on our left leg. And the reason for that is the same reason that we discussed in the first 4 sessions, is our anatomy, right? So the way that we're constructed inside, because of the 3 lung lobes on the right, the higher diaphragm on the right, the larger central tendon of your diaphragm on the right, the lower attachments of the diaphragm on the right that pull your spine in that direction. Everything is kind of more dense and more stable on this side, because of everything that's happening in your torso there, that right pelvis is going to be in a more stance position. That head of the femur, the thigh bone in the right hip socket, is going to be nicely seated into that socket. You're just kind of buried over here physically and neurologically, the way our brain is wired. The centers of our brain that have different organization for speech, for interaction, is set up so that we tend to go onto our right side with our left brain and just kind of stay there. So what we need to do is work a little bit to be able to get ourselves back onto the left side. And people will ask me, well, can I go too much to the left? And the answer really is no. Because if you think about it, if everything about you is pushing you over to the right, no matter how much you work on going to the left, you're always going to have that tendency to go back to the right. So it's always good to work on getting onto your left side. Now, certain situations, like people who have vision issues, especially people who've had multiple concussions or head injuries, this may not apply to you. You might need some more assistance, some more one-on-one assistance, but for most people, this is true. And most likely it is true for you if you're not dealing with any of those other issues. So, like we talked about before in the earlier sessions, the left hip, well, let's start from the top, right? So the left ribs tend to be more flared up and out because the left diaphragm is flatter, because it doesn't have all that structural support of the liver and that nice, dense, full lung field here. So we tend to kind of be flared on the left, which is going to side bend us to the right. And that also tips our left hemipelvis forward. So what that looks like is this, right? So you see a lot of people when they stand like this. So they stand on their right leg or they post on their left leg. Do you see how even though I'm standing on my left leg, I'm still on my right side? And just watch people. You'll see they'll pop their left hip out, or they'll stand on their right leg with their left leg just kind of forward. So let's work on this a little bit together, and I'm going to step away a little bit from the computer so you can see me. So I hope you can still hear me, and just send me a chat if you can't. Okay, so when you're just standing, right, and our tendency is to be on that right leg with that left leg forward, those left ribs up, that left pelvis forward, and then that left head of the femur is coming forward in the socket a little bit, so it's not seated in the socket. My left hip is turning out. So to be able to transition to the left side, I need to get these ribs down and get that ball and socket by turning my hip in and finding the ground through my left heel. So let's try and find that together. So stand with your feet just parallel facing forward. And I want you to do this with me if you can. Just stand up wherever you are and put both your hands on your lower front ribs. So I'm not on that squishy part right under my ribs, I'm right on the bony front parts of my ribs. And first thing I want you to do is just find your heels. So you don't have to lift up your toes or rock back or anything like that. Feel your whole foot on the ground, but know that you have a heel. And see if you can just soften your knees. So, excuse me, you just unlock them. So I'm not bending them. They're straight, but not locked. Keeping weight through your heels, soft knees. Take a breath in through your nose. And big sigh out through your mouth. Letting those ribs come down and back, and pause there. Keeping heels down, knees soft. Keep those ribs back, breathe in through your nose. So you might just work on that, because for a lot of us runners, or if you're particularly stressed or a combination, both sides will tend to pop up because that's a protective reflexive mechanism. So it might just be work for you to find your heels, soften your knees, and get those ribs back. If you want to take this a step further, you can try this with me. I'm going to take my right foot just a little in front of my left. So I'll step back so you can see my feet. So I'm not doing this. This is my right foot. I'm just bringing it about that much in front of my left. It's very subtle. So bring your right foot a little in front of your left. And again, soften your knees, especially your left knee. Because the way that your body tries to get fake left, it tricks you and makes you think you're on the left side when you're not, is it'll lock your left knee. And you see what that just did to my center of mass? When I lock my knee, I'm still on my right side. Do you perceive that how my center of mass is over here? So I need to actually get to my left side. I need to soften my left knee, find weight through my left heel, perhaps a little more weight on the left outer heel to midfoot. Re-soften that knee, and then find your zipper. So my pants don't have a zipper, but it's just like my pubic bone, or where my zipper would be if I was wearing jeans. I'm just gonna turn that pant zipper just a little bit so that it's pointing towards my left big toe. So I'm not going all the way over here. It's just very subtle. Soft knee, weight through heel, and then boop, just a little turn. And then I'm gonna keep all that. By now, if you're doing this right, you should feel your outer hip working, your left outer hip, maybe your left inner thigh working. And then just take a breath in through your nose, out through your mouth, and just connect those left lower ribs down. Now I'm on my left side. I work on this a lot, and for me, this feels weird because I'm so much more comfortable on my right. Like, this is still work for me. It just doesn't come natural to us as humans. That's something to work on. So you can come out of that, and trying to do that frequently throughout your day is lovely. Just if you find yourself standing and talking to somebody for a while, just shift back into your left heel, soften your left knee, and turn your zipper a little to the left. And obviously if you're talking to somebody, you don't want to be like breathing in their face, but you can do just a relaxed, quieter breath. It's just about getting those ribs down, getting air out. If that's not working for you, if it's causing any pain, or you're not feeling your outer hip or your inner thigh, or you can't get a good sense of your heel, I'm going to show you a little different version of this. So this is for somebody who's maybe spent a lot of time being extended, and you're just now maybe trying to figure out how to get out of that. This is a little bit easier. So my feet now are side by side. I don't have one in front of the other. They're just right next to each other. And I'm going to do the same thing, just unlock my knees, feel some weight through my heels, my whole foot, but especially my heels. And this time my pant zipper is not going to turn. So I'm not turning either way. My pant zipper is going to stay facing forward. So soft knees, weight in your heels, and then I'm going to keep my zipper facing forward and just shift my body over to the left. So I'm not turning this time, I'm just shifting. And then I have to recheck that I still have weight through my left heel, and then I have a soft left knee. And again, I can exhale, get those ribs down. And you could even add to that by taking your left hand and with your next exhale, just, and I'm exaggerating to reach down like that. It could just be this much. So every out breath, I'm just reaching my arm a little further down, but it really doesn't even have to be that much. I'm exaggerating so that you can see what I'm doing. So if I were actually doing this, it would look something like this. Weight through heels, soften knees, shift a little to the left. And I'm using my air out to just solidify myself onto this left side. So those are all really nice things for you to try. And they're simple and you can incorporate them into your day. So even if you, didn't get your exercises that day or something, you can know that you're having a good effect by just changing the way you do things in your day to day. There's other little tricks that you could try to get you over to your left side a little bit better. And remember, the importance of getting to your left side is so that you can alternate and reciprocate evenly as a runner. As a runner, there's a tendency to slowly kind of get buried in that right side. And if you watch runners, other runners, when you're out running, a lot of them will have a dropped right shoulder. Not all of them, but many of them, because they're kind of over to the right side. We compensate in all sorts of ways. So some people, they got over the right side and then they figured out something else to do with their head and neck. But a lot of them do have a dropped right shoulder. So that's because of that reciprocal activity, and their body is just slowly pushing them over here, and then they end up running like this and wondering why their neck hurts or something else hurts. So this is to get you alternating and reciprocating evenly. One other thing, some other tips that you can use to get over to your left side are using your vision and your cognitive awareness of where you are in space and of your body. So because we are a lot of our perception of the world is driven by this right-sided bodiness and left side brainedness, which is connected to the right side body. We can use our perception to change our sidedness. So one thing you can do is just take some time. So before you do this with me, I want you to just sit or stand, however you're sitting, and just take a moment and close your eyes. And just see if you feel your sit bones. And if you don't feel your sit bones, or if you don't know where your sit bones are, they're those bony parts that you sit on at the base of your pelvis. So you can roll your pelvis under and let your ribs come down a little bit. So it might feel a little slouchy, but I'm going to say that's okay, because if you're always sitting up really straight, guess what I've just done? I've closed off this whole breathing area. I've extended myself again. So I'm going to say it's okay for you to kind of round and slouch a little bit. I'm not sitting like this, but I am connected. I'm stacked, rib cage over pelvis. So just find that seat and close your eyes. And just see if you feel one sit bone more than the other, if you feel one heel more than the other on the ground. And if you feel air going more into one side than the other of your chest. So for me, I feel like more weight is on my right side. I feel my right heel. And when I breathe in, I feel my left rib cage expanding more in the front, which makes sense, right? Because if we're trying to get air into the back and that left side is flared, we're going to breathe like this. So now we're just going to try this together. So take your left hand up and just study it for a while. Look at your left hand, look at all the little creases in your knuckles. If you have some rings, you can inspect those rings and think about where you got them. You can turn your palm over and look at the lines in your hand and all the little contours and different colors. Maybe you have some scars. You can check out your nails. Mine are looking a little dry from all this hand washing we've been doing lately. Just see, check out some freckles. And then just put your hand back down and close your eyes and see if you feel any different. So I'm noticing I have more weight in my left side. I'm getting more air into my right chest wall. I am more aware of my left heel. So it seems like it's kind of magical, and maybe you were able to perceive some change, or maybe you weren't. Um, but it's not something that's made up or magical or mystical. It's just the way our bodies work. We adjust how we hold ourselves based on what we perceive from our environment. So another little trick you could do is when you're out for your next walk or hike or run, just be more aware of your left peripheral vision. We talked about this in another session, but just kind of opening up that side of your visual field and even glancing over to your left more, that can also help you get onto your left side. So that is all I had for today's session. So it's a little bit shorter session, but some useful information. I encourage you to go back and review the older sessions because they'll probably make more sense now that you've taken all of them. And if you do have any questions, please do reach out to me, Derya, DERYA, at myessentialpt.com. And you can also find all these exercises on my website. That's myessentialpt.com, and it's under the courses and workshops tab. So thank you so much for watching, and I'm going to stop the recording and answer some of your questions for people who are on live. So thank you so much for tuning in.